30 down to about the 28-yard line. That's good for a Tiger first down. In on the stop, Devin Parker. Second quarter, the Fighting Irish 17, Tigers 14.
Horace Henshaw here for the Pacifica Historical Society and the show Footprints of Pacifica. We get together every week to discover and explore the lure and the lore of lovely Pacifica, its character and its characters. The focus of today's show is Pacifica football, and in particularly high school football in Pacifica. We'll have with us today Bill Gray, Terra Nova Athletic Director and Head Football Coach. Today, in his 40th year of coaching football in Pacifica, he is a rarity among coaches. It's unusual today in today's coaching world to have a coach stay in that position as long as 40 years. However, Coach Gray has no signs of even slowing down. Pacifica has fielded a football team since 1960 when the Oceana Seahawks made its debut. 2 years later, Pacifica fielded two football teams. Terra Nova and Oceana came into being in 1962. Ironically, Coach Gray has coached at both schools, coming to Oceana in 1971 and then joining the Terra Nova coaching staff in 1991. For our program today, we're going to go back 40 years, as long as Coach Gray has been here, to talk about football history. He will also elaborate a little bit on what he knows about those past years, but we're going to probably stay within that 40-year range. We're here on the campus of Terra Nova in the locker room at Terra Nova, Bill Gray's home for about 24/7, and we're going to talk to Bill this afternoon. Thanks, Coach, for your hospitality.
Thanks for coming.
Before we go into the history of the football programs, perhaps you can share with us just how you came about coming to Pacifica and your early thoughts on the community and joining the Oceana coaching staff.
Sure. I had played college football at San Francisco State and was in the teacher training program. And I became a student teacher at Oceana High School, teaching science, biology, earth science, and PE. And things worked out there very well. I was able to be hired there as a teacher. And the other thing that was going on was that Ed Larios was coaching football there. He was the head football coach. Ed Larios and I played together at San Francisco State. And the freshman football coach and athletic director, Jess Jones, also was an SF State graduate. So there were a lot of ties there. And the real reason that I came to Pacific and Oceana High School is that's where the job offer was. I knew very little about the community, but upon doing my student teaching, it became very clear to me that this was a place that I wanted to work and wanted to coach. And the year after my student teaching, Ed Larios remained as the head coach, and he hired me as an assistant. And then the year after that, Ed and I changed roles. He was the assistant and I was the head coach. So that's what brought me here. I've had a few opportunities to leave, but wisely decided not to. It's a great place to work, and I've enjoyed every minute of it and hope to be able to stay here for quite a while longer.
Now, today, you're at Terra Nova, but Oceana dropped many of the sports programs when it restructured the school in 1991. When that happened, in today's world, how did the athletic void affect the community, or has it at this time?
Well, that's an interesting scenario the way it happened. Terra Nova and Oceana were both in very serious declining enrollment. Mike Gunning and I had become acquaintances. We had worked together on the semi-pro football team. We got to know each other and became good friends. And we had kind of sat around and talked a lot about that there simply were not enough kids in Pacifica to warrant 2 high schools. And both schools had dropped well below 1,000 in enrollment. And we were struggling to offer a lot of the things that a comprehensive high school can offer, and then there was an obvious impact on the athletic programs. So when Oceana High School joined the Coalition of Essential Schools, the Coalition of Essential Schools, part of that doctrine is that you do not have an athletic program. Since then, Oceana is not a member of the Coalition of Essential Schools anymore, and they recognize the fact that an athletic program is important to a school. It gives kids things to do, it gives them an identity, it gives them some way to attach themselves to the school. But at that point, when Oceana first changed their philosophy, there was no athletics there at all. And there was no reason to stay there. And I had a chance to go up to Westmore, work for Mike Crilly, who was the principal up there. But the ties that we had formed with the community here in Pacifica just made it a very easy decision to stay and not leave. And it ended up being very much the right decision.
You know, we're sitting here in the Terra Nova locker room, and we look outside as we come into the school, and we see this beautiful sports facility, the Terra Nova Tiger Stadium. You were out front several years ago to make it important that we develop sports facilities, not only here in Pacifica, but throughout the Jefferson Union High School District. Walk me through that scenario, how this came about.
Well, that as schools age, their buildings deteriorate, their fields deteriorate, their facilities deteriorate. They just age, just like people age, you know. And because we're a low-funded district, maintaining those facilities became even harder. And this is back about 12, 13 years ago when these new synthetic fields were coming on the market, and we looked at it and said, you know, here's a way to spend some money, but in the long run save money. And to be honest with you, the first time I brought it up to the district administration, I was literally laughed out of the room. And then to their credit, especially under the leadership of Mike Crilly, Steve Fuentes, and others in the district office, they began to pay attention and see it, and they thought it was a good idea. And they went out and worked very hard to pass a school bond. So the seed of the idea kind of rested with me, but the generation of the idea and the generation of the plan was the district office and the school administrations and so on. And our district has done a fabulous job in that relationship of improving their facilities, both the classrooms and the athletic fields and all the surrounding buildings. And it's an ongoing process, and it's just going to serve our community in a wonderful way.
So Terra Nova did not only reap the rewards, but the other schools also, because they have some, maybe you can tell us what was built at the other schools.
You know, Jefferson has a new gym and a new athletic facility, and their school was rebuilt when our school was rebuilt, all the classrooms and so on. Oceana went through the same thing. Their athletic facilities are coming down the road. There's going to be some more work done here at Terra Nova. We have the Performing Arts Center being built. Westmore's field is under construction now, new swimming pool and so on, and now all of that also speaks volumes about the support of the community, because you don't pass a school bond like that without the support of the community. And so it's a collaborative effort between staff, school administration, district administration, and the community, and it's paid great dividends for our students and our community. It isn't just Terra Nova High School that uses our facility. You know, there's a tremendous number of outside groups that come and use it too.
I know you have the soccer programs that play here.
Yeah, and when we had the grass field that was deteriorating annually, nobody would come and use it. Now it's busy every day, every night.
You know, the two schools, Terra Nova and Oceana, have a combined 3 Central Coast Section championships. First, explain the Central Coast section makeup, how that is achieved, and then secondly, maybe talk about those championship years of Terra Nova and Oceana.
Okay, well, we're in the Peninsula Athletic League, and years ago we used to be in the North Peninsula League, and things change and they evolve. But during that whole time, we were members also of the Central Coast section, which extends from the private schools in San Francisco all the way down to King City. And we're also members of the CIF, all right? And the Central Coast section and CIF provide the opportunity for postseason play. And so here we are trying to win league championships, and if you do well enough in the league, then you qualify for postseason play. And it's a remarkable thing, a lot of people aren't aware of this, but Terra Nova High School football program has had more appearances in the Central Coast section football playoffs than any school in San Mateo County, including Sarah. Okay? Terra Nova has won more playoff games and lost more playoff games than any school in the section. Now, the Central Coast section championship at Oceana, Oceana was a school that was searching for an identity. And one of the best ways to create an identity for a school is through its athletic program. A lot of people seem to be uncomfortable with that, but when it's done the right way, it takes and puts the school up front. And when I first came to Oceana, Oceana had won 10 games in 10 years. And the first year we were there, we were 0-9. And it was very hard and very difficult, but we were trying to change the culture of the school. And as the wrestling program evolved, the football program evolved, and other athletic programs evolved, then Oceana self-esteem improved by leaps and bounds. And the Central Coast section championship in football was kind of a culmination of all of that, where we had gone from literally a football doormat to being the best team in the Central Coast section. And the interesting thing is the team that we beat in that game was Terra Nova, which a lot of people don't remember. So Terra Nova was progressing very well, and the very following year, Terra Nova won the Central Coast section under the guidance of Mike Gunning. Okay. Ask the forgiveness of our viewers, our ventilation system just kicked on here, and it's going to be a little bit of background noise, but we're sitting in a locker room, and ventilation is important, right? So on we go. The interesting thing that back then, when Terra Nova and Oceana won their Central Coast section championships, that at that point the section championships were within regions within the section. So in reality, those CCS championships were San Mateo County championships. Okay. Now the CCS has evolved into a section-wide championship, and it's much harder and much more challenging to win. And last year we came close. And now it is a true section-wide championship. Okay, and then of course, if you win a section championship, you may have the opportunity to go on to a state championship. The section championships are divided up by divisions of enrollment. And so from year to year, we're in different divisions. Last year, we happened to be in the division that suited us best. Our enrollment is getting a little bit smaller now as schools go in cycles. And we may drop down an enrollment division for next year, or this year, but we won't know for a while. So the postseason play is wonderful, it's exciting, but the goal still remains to win a league championship. And even the league has changed, all right? So, you know, it used to be the North Peninsula League with the 2 South City schools, 2 Daly City schools, or 3 when Ceremony was open, Half Moon Bay, and so on. Now even that's all changed, and our league now doesn't have anything to do at all with local schools. You know, it's Burlingame, Aragon, Woodside, MA, because it's a power league. So it just keeps changing, but those are changes for the good, changes for better and better competition. So we're striving to perform and achieve at the highest public school level in the county and the section.
Now over those years, I guess particularly the year that Oceana won the CCS, you have a lot of games that you remember very fondly. Mm-hmm. Can you pick those up? And
well, You know, I knew you were going to ask this question, and I gave it a lot of thought. And obviously the section championship game was important. The first time at Oceana High School that we beat South City was huge. South City was the dominant team at that point, coached by Ray DeYoung, and he did a fabulous job there. And Oceana had never beaten South City. And the night we beat South City was a real landmark event for our high school. Same thing when we first beat Westmore. We hadn't beaten Westmore for a long time. And then I think the most memorable game at Oceana was my first year there. We had hosted Terra Nova for the anchor game, and Luis Sanchez had run crazy, and I can't remember what the score was, but it was something like 40-0. At that point, I didn't understand what the anchor meant, but you could tell that it was something special. And then the following year, we came to Terra Nova and we won the anchor. And we didn't understand the impact of that until we got back to school. We drove into the parking lot up there by Oceana High School, and the parking lot was packed with cars and people. And they were literally carrying the kids off of us. And at that point, you went, okay, I get it now. This is important. And so that was a very fond memory. You know, coming to Terra Nova, Coach Gunning and Mike Gunning and I working together and becoming good friends. I think one of the most memorable games was the first game that we played, and it was a loss in East Bay to San Lorenzo High School. And but to take the two programs and merge them together was not an easy chore. So just getting on the field and playing that first game was very, very important. And then the evolution of the Half Moon Bay Terra Nova rivalry and some of the wins that we've had over Half Moon Bay in a fierce competitive situation has been a very, very fond memories.
Let's carry, when we're talking about the anchor game, let's carry it a little bit further, because you talked about how important it was for the two schools perhaps to have that competition. How about the community involvement? How important was it for the community? The anchor game started in 1962. I know you were not here in 1962, but do you know any of the past history of how this all evolved?
Realistically, no. I know that I guess it was Bill Drake that put the anchor thing together. It's interesting when you get outside the community, people don't know much about it, so you have to be part of the community to understand it. And when I first came to Oceana High School, I didn't have a clue about it. I know anchor, fine. We didn't have it. I didn't even know what the thing looked like. So, okay, we're playing for a trophy. That's great. But there's nothing quite like an inner city rivalry in sport, regardless of the activity. And in high school football, just happens to be a big, big deal anywhere. And you know, you look at the El Camino South City rivalry and so on. So the Terra Nova Oceana rivalry is a natural. The other thing that's unique about Pacifica is, to this day, it still has the small town feel about it. We're minutes away from San Francisco, but it's still small town, and people are very loyal to their high schools. So the rivalry is very fierce. At times it borders on hatred. Okay, I'm not sure that's entirely healthy, but fierce and friendly is a better word. But we had some tremendous games, and we told our kids, you know, it's like the Army-Navy game. You could go 0-9, but if you play Terra Nova and you beat them, it's a successful year. And now we look at it the same way with Half Moon Bay. And the interesting thing about Half Moon Bay is it's small town, small town. So you get on the bus and you drive down the coast, or they get on the bus and drive up the coast. And it's like, it's analogous to the little schools out in the valley or little schools in Texas, where the whole town revolves around their football team.
The skull now that depicts the rivalry between Half Moon Bay and Terra Nova, how did that come about?
Okay, that with the anchor game going away, with a lot of fond memories, there And we knew that the league had decided that, and now here's an interesting thing. When I came here from Oceana, I always thought that the Oceana-Terranova game was the ultimate deal. When I came here, and I'll go ahead and say it, the kids actually, I think, some of them, many of them, thought that the Half Moon Bay game was more important. Okay, I couldn't figure that one out, but that's the way it was, and that was fine. So our traditional rival became Half Moon Bay, and I certainly know that that's the case for Half Moon Bay. All right, I mean, I still go down there now, and I can't walk into a restaurant or walk down the street without people knowing who I am. I think I'm the most vilified person in Half Moon Bay, which is it's fine with me. But there was a hollow spot there. There had to be something that we could play for. Now they're the Cougars, we're the Tigers. So we were sitting around the coach's office one day and we said, Saber-tooth tiger. Now, we just thought of that, okay? It's not a cougar, it's not a tiger, it's something else like that. And then we said, well, what would we play for? And I said, I just came up with the idea, I said, La Brea Tar Pits. We can get a saber-tooth tiger skull. So we went to the booster club. They were in favor of it. We went down to Half Moon Bay. Their booster club was in favor of it, but their administration wasn't because they felt that it was going to be too competitive. Then the head coaching position changed at Half Moon Bay, and Matt Ballard, who does a great job there, jumped on the bandwagon and said, yeah, this is something we want to do. So it's a collaborative effort between the Half Moon Bay Booster Club and the Terranova Booster Club. They equally footed the bill for the trophy. It is expensive, and we put the thing together, took it over to Clear Lake Trophies in South City. They mounted it, put it together, and now there was a newspaper article a couple of years ago about unique trophies and so on, and the anchor was mentioned because it is unique, but this one is right near the top of the list. There's nothing quite like it that other high schools play for. So it hasn't been around long enough to be termed a tradition, but it's a tradition.
Now we're early in the season, and Half Moon Bay is on your schedule later in the season. But what type of team do you anticipate for your varsity this year?
Well, you're right. It is early. Mm-hmm. And the answer to that question is we don't know. We're not sure. I think a lot of it has to do with the way our football program is structured with freshman football and sophomore football. And I don't want to get into all the details of it, but our lower level programs usually have quite a bit of success. And the varsity level of football is so much different than freshman and sophomore level. Our kids come in and they expect or think that they're going to have the same type of success that they had on the lower levels without inputting additional effort. So we are slow starters. We have always been slow starters here. Last year we were 0-3. This year we're 0-1. So what we're doing is going through this process of getting our kids to understand the type of effort and practice and the type of effort that is required at the varsity level of football in the Bay Division and the Central Coast section. If we were in the Lake or the Ocean Division, we could just kind of meander through the day and probably do just fine. But we're trying to compete at the highest level. So right now the jury's out. We don't know what kind of team we have. We know what kind of team we could have. There's a very good football team in this room, and at times there's a very poor football team in this room. Now we said the same exact thing about last year's team. They got it figured out, it mattered to them, and they evolved into a championship team. This football team can do the same thing, okay? Time will tell.
You've been very proactive in fundraising for Terranova, and you really were a community leader who believed it important to keep the fireworks sales alive in Pacifica. Why is it important not only to Terranova, but to the other nonprofits to continue the sales of fireworks?
The sale of Safe and Sane fireworks for the Terranova football program on a good year will generate over $20,000 in profit. Okay, this year it was a little less than that.
Bill, as we close out the program, what do you see as the future of high school sports, and once again in particular Pacifica?
Well, high school sports in Pacifica remain healthy. We're one of the few public school programs that hasn't cut sports, hasn't cut games, haven't cut our schedules back. Our school district has been as generous as they can possibly be in terms of funding. That funding is inadequate. That's why we have to become fundraisers, but that's normal. When you look at other districts, our school district has planned and has done very, very well in terms of athletics. So the future is good. The future is healthy. I'd like to see Oceana High School add some things to their program because it's really important for kids, all right? I got to share this one story with you. You talk about compelling moments. I was at Terranova for a while, and I was driving home after a game, and I went to McDonald's on the way home, and a high school girl was sitting in the window serving me, and she looks at me and she says, "You're Coach Gray at Terranova High School?" I said, "Yes." I said, "Where do you go to high school?" She said, "Oceana." And she got this very serious look on her face, and she said, "I wish we had a football team." And that was a compelling moment for me because it tells you that athletics is not the only part of the high school experience, but it is a very important part. It gives kids something to do, it gives them something to talk about. It's a way to identify a school on top of the academics and everything else, good things that a school does. And having come from Oceana, we should never forget the legacy of Oceana High School, ever, okay? And if Oceana could add athletics, more athletics to their identity, I think it would serve them well.
That may happen years down the road. And they're developing, as you said earlier, a new sports facility there, so that may help. Well, that's all the time we have today. We want to thank Coach Bill Gray for joining us, and we wish him all the best in his future endeavors. Now remember, if you want to get involved with the Pacifica Historical Society and our many projects, our address is P.O. Box 752, Pacifica 94044. Email is www.pacificahistory.org, and our phone number is 650-359-5462. Thank you for watching our show.